Hello and welcome. Nigeria's electoral system takes a new shape as the president finally signs the reworked electoral bill into law, hints National Assembly to expect amendment on the act. Reactions trail the president's assent to the electoral bill. Political players and analysts say key provisions will help curb electoral fraud. Kidnap kingpin Chukwudumeme Onwamadike, popularly known as Evans, sentenced to life in prison for conspiracy and kidnapping of a businessman, Donatus Suduru.
National news from London. Ukrainian civilians are now bearing arms as Russian troops sweep through the country.
On business news tonight, leading indigenous energy company Seplat Energy set to acquire the entire share capital of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited in a $1.28 billion deal.
On sports news tonight, the UEFA Champions League final has been moved to Paris after Russia was stripped of the match following their invasion of Ukraine.
And from Abuja, Nigerian students in Ukraine asked to be evacuated from the troubled country following their failed attempt to escape from violence unleashed due to the Russian invasion.
To say, Mr. President, should the National Assembly come back with the bill and they edit out what you don't like, will this sign it?
I don't think I told them what I don't like. All I said, there should be options. We must not insist that it has to be direct. It should be consensus and indirect.
So if they do that, would you sign it?
Yes, I will. I will say.
A promise kept. The president has finally signed the electoral bill into law today at exactly 25 minutes past 12 p.m. on the 25th day of February, 25 days after the bill was transmitted to him by the National Assembly. President Muhammadu Buhari assented to the bill at the council chambers, where he noted that the reworked bill contains provisions that could positively transform elections in Nigeria through new technological innovations. He, however, urged the National Assembly to speed up amendments to some provisions of concern. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
At about midday, President Muhammadu Buhari arrives the council chamber after a two-day official trip to Nasarawa State to append his signature on the reworked Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is the first in 12 years after the 2010 Electoral Act. The President of the Senate, Mr. Ahmed Lawan, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, the Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, Mr. Yabagi Sani, as well as other members of Cabinet were in attendance.
Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission.
The President acknowledges an improved version of the bill, which he has held for the past 25 days since it was transmitted on January 31, 2022. However, he has some areas of concern.
The section provides as follows. No political appointee at any level shall be voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. This provision has introduced qualification and disqualification criteria that alter various the Constitution by way of imposing blanket restriction and disqualification to serving political office holders, of which they are constitutionally accorded protection.
That provision is a major objection raised by the president, which he believes infringes on the rights of political office holders. He wants the National Assembly to amend the section.
Arising from the foregoing, with particular regards to the benefits of the bill, industry, time, resources, and energy committed in its passage, I hereby assent to the bill and request the National Assembly to consider immediate amendments that will bring the bill in tune with constitutionality by way of deleting section 84, subsection 12 accordingly.
Appearing visibly elated, the president, flanked by the leadership of the National Assembly, finally appends his signature to the reworked 2021 Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Moments after the brief ceremony, the President of the Senate, as well as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, apparently went into a private meeting with the President in his office. The leadership of the National Assembly, in a chat with State House correspondents, assures that the legislature will consider the President's request for amendment.
I hope that they will send the request for the amendment in good time, because time is of essence. INEC is waiting, and because we don't want to spill over some of these dates unnecessarily, we will be expecting a communication from Mr. President with respect to this, and then the National Assembly in both chambers will look into the request for amendment.
Other participants at the brief ceremony expressed binary views of hope and possible pitfalls if enforcement is lacking.
I believe that the laws are there, but what is lacking is the enforcement of those laws. At the point of voting, we still have to come up with ways by which we can address the issue of use of money, obscene use of money, to influence voters. Otherwise, to be garbage in, garbage out.
Now that the reworked 2021 Electoral Act Amendment Bill has been signed, expectations have obviously soared, and a more reliable election conduct in the country is imminent. But apparently this law is not an end to all electoral challenges in the country. It is hoped that at least the law will address issues of manipulation and provide a level playing field for all political parties in the country. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And as expected, reactions have begun to trail the signing of the Electoral Amendment Bill by the President. Speaking to Channels Television, some federal lawmakers share their thoughts, and they also have words of advice for the electoral umpire.
The intention for which we went on this voyage, and we put it on the front burner, was to increase competitiveness, was to increase transparency, was to ensure the independence of the INEC, and also to increase transparency and accountability, and also to achieve credible election. So credible election will be achieved if all these factors I've mentioned now are in place. The ball is now in their court. Nigerians are now not expecting to get excuses why elections are not credible. They want to see transparency. They want to see competitiveness in the space. They want to see you leverage the independence that have been given to you through this piece of legislation. And they want to see that the process is accountable. So we are watching, and I've always said, when we make laws, we pass to the executive to implement, and then we watch them to see how far they go with implementing the desires, the wishes, the hunger of the people of Nigeria who has made us their parliament.
So now up to INEC to make sure that the electronic transmission, which is what is critical in the hearts of most Nigerians, so that the funny results we're getting from certain parts of the country will no longer occur. And they should make haste to correct whatever issues they have with the BVAS machine.
And members of civil society organizations who've been in the forefront of the campaign to get the president's assent have also been speaking on the latest development. According to them, the signing of the bill is a testament to what citizens' action can achieve.
The mixed feelings of the amended Electoral Act seems to have been put to rest as President Muhammadu Buhari finally appends his signature to the much-awaited Electoral Act Amendment Bill. During the special program to herald the signing of the legislation, some analysts, including members of the civil society groups that have been at the forefront of the campaigns for the signing of the bill, expressed gratitude to the president, while urging Nigerians to be vigilant as the constitutional amendment may impact the new law.
I'm really excited, that this has happened. I will say, thank you, Father of the Nation. We hope that citizens will take opportunity of the continuous voter registration exercise that is going on. We hope that this will give more confidence to Nigerians.
The Constitution is the ground norm, is the most important document. It's what binds each and every one of us together. And we're aware that it is also undergoing some reform process. And some of those things might impact and will necessitate amendments to this Electoral Act 2022 already. So we have to keep, and we must not rest on our oars. Civil society, the media, we must take a closer look at what is going on there.
They also urged young people and women to take advantage of the new act as the 2023 general elections approaches, so as to ensure that young people and women can maximize the law to their own benefits.
It also means a lot for trying to get more young people to register to vote. Because these elections is our elections, right? Majority of the voters are young people. And then if you put 47% of voters being women, this is supposed to be an election where we can decide. But we looked at it, and if you tell people to come and vote, the same issues that have been there, they just feel like, look, this doesn't matter. And right now, it matters. This system has been fixed in a way that we can take charge. It can really be our election.
At exactly 12:25 p.m. Nigerian time on Friday, February 25th, 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Now, civil society organizations and concerned Nigerians can now hope for a credible electoral process, while the leadership of INEC have their job of prosecuting the governorship elections in Ondo and Ekiti, as well as the general elections caught out for them. What Nigerians can now expect from the electoral body is the release of the timetable for the conduct of the 2023 general elections. From Abuja, Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
More reactions to the signing of the electoral bill, and Governor Nyesom Wike believes that the introduction of electronic transmission of results will reduce killings and electoral fraud in the country. He, however, faults the president's observations on Section 84, subsection 12, which deals with the status of political appointees during party conventions and congresses. The Rivers State Governor says the president's reservation indicates that protecting the interest of his appointees was all the while the main reason for not signing the amended bill.
First of all, one thing it will do, it will reduce the involvement of security agencies of hijacking materials, ballot boxes, and results. Now, in that case, what it will require is that you need to go and mobilize people. And if Republic officers who want to recontest election, it is your performance that will now determine for you. It will not only be paying bribe to INEC, paying bribe to security agencies. So, it will now put public officers on their toes. To say, look, now that they are no longer writing of result as it is always been done, hijacking materials as it has always been done, instead of you to perform, you go to INEC, you go to security agencies, you go to the army, you go to the police, you go to SSS, you go to civil defense. Look, I have this amount of money for you, and I want you to escort this to social place, push out the electoral personnel, other personnel, and take them on, let them sign. All right? And it has also provided, from what I have read, under that law, that INEC has the right to reject results that are made under duress.
In part two, after the break, we'll be examining the President's assent to the Electoral Bill and its implications. Our guest is the Executive Director, Policy and Advocacy Centre, Mr. Clement Wangwo. That's in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Nigeria's electoral system takes a new shape as the President finally signs the reworked Electoral Bill into law, hints National Assembly to expect amendment to the Act. Reactions trail the President's assent to the Electoral Bill. Political power players and analysts say key provisions will help curb electoral fraud. Kidnap kingpin Chukwudumeme Onwamadike, popularly known as Evans, bags life imprisonment for conspiracy and kidnapping of a businessman, Donatus Duru. And Ukrainian civilians are now bearing arms to protect their country as Russian troops continue to sweep through the country. With the President's assent to the Electoral Bill, it appears some people now have their work cut out. Top among them is the Electoral Umpire that will be holding an extraordinary meeting tomorrow, Saturday, February the 26th, 2022. Thereafter, the Commission will release a statement on the way forward for the 2023 election plans and schedule of activities. In a statement today, the Commission described the signing of the bill as historic, being the fourth time since the restoration of democracy in Nigeria in 1999 that the Electoral Act is repealed and re-enacted. According to INEC, the newly passed electoral law contains many progressive provisions that will facilitate the conduct of free, fair and credible elections in Nigeria. Well, call it a bumpy ride, and you may not be wrong. Perhaps that best describes the journey of the Electoral Act 2022. Rancor, disagreements and rejection characterize the legislative pathway to the eventual signing of the bill into law today. In this report, our political correspondent Seun Okinbaloye paints a picture of the road to the Electoral Act 2022.
Glamorous and relieving as the President finally signed the Electoral Bill into law, but the journey has not been rosy. The move to amend the Electoral Act under the leadership of the Saraki National Assembly of the 8th National Assembly proved abortive. And so, naturally, the 9th Assembly carried over the burden. They began work early, with a deadline to pass the bill before the end of August 2021, an effort that hit the rocks. But at the final stages, the public became more involved and aware of the circumstances surrounding the bill. The issues of electronic transmission of results tore the two chambers of the National Assembly apart and along party lines.
I want to say that I am not part of that vote. I and a few of us will be unable to stay here and be part of this discussion.
External bodies were called to give their expert views, but the outcome was not satisfactory to many Nigerians. The clamor went on.
This country will be better off if we go into the next election with a new electoral law.
Civil society and media organizations found more pressure. Somehow, the Senate made a U-turn on the clause of electronic transmission of results. After all said and done, the National Assembly passed the bill and transmitted to the President in November 2021. The waiting game was activated, but in the end, the President refused assent and calls to override his veto grew.
When I was campaigning,
in an exclusive interview with Channels Television early January, the President gave a clue to what should be done.
All I said, there should be options. We must not insist that it has to be direct. It should be consensus and indirect.
So if they do that, would you sign it?
Yes, I will.
The National Assembly returned from their recess and got quickly to work. But Nigerians won't rest.
To ask him to sign the bill.
Until the president assented the bill, that was after 25 days, which was transmitted to his office. And now we have a brand new Electoral Act 2022. Shinwa Kimaloye, Channels Television News.
Now let's take a look at the significance of the signing of what's become the Electoral Act 2022. I'm now being joined live from Abuja by a constitutional lawyer and Executive Director, Policy and Advocacy Center, Mr. Clement Wankwo. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Now, the signing of this bill has been described as historic. What did you feel when you heard the news?
Relieved, I would say, because the pressure has been on and we didn't understand why it wasn't being signed other than issues beyond what it should be. The Constitution is quite clear. The role of the specific individuals and institutions in lawmaking, the National Assembly consider and make the law, and the president to assent if there are no illegal or unconstitutional aspects to it. So for a lot of us, quite baffling the delay. But I must say, yes, we were all relieved, quite relieved, because the country had waited for this new electoral law since even before the elections are held in 2019. So yes, very relieved, like most Nigerians.
You're one of those who've called for change in our electoral system for years. After each election, you talk about that, particularly as it concerns the collation process and that long wait for results. What are your thoughts now that Section 50 gives INEC the powers to deploy technology for electronic transmission?
Shema, it's not just Section 50. When you look at different other sections of the new Electoral Act, it even gives the Commission powers to use technology to determine disputes, where, for instance, counting is held and results are published and there's a dispute. The new electoral law gives the Commission powers to go back to what technology recorded, results that were recorded in any device that was used for the election. So it's really far-reaching, and I think it'll be important for Nigerians that there's a lot of dissemination of information on the contents of this bill. I think it's one of the best bills that you would see in any electoral jurisdiction, and I would commend the National Assembly for making this law. Also the President, actually, for signing it, except, of course, that we all wondered why it took so long. But it's really a very, very progressive bill. It puts a lot of onus on the Electoral Commission. I think INEC had been very strong in supporting the passage of the bill. It's also important that INEC takes a look at the bill very deeply and closely to see that a lot of responsibilities are placed on it. And all of the challenges that we have seen in recent elections, whether it's even in the local elections in Abuja, would mean that INEC really needs to prepare to sit up to deal with this. And it would seem to me that even beginning from the outcome of the election meeting that INEC would have tomorrow, it will immediately need to announce dates for elections, because clearly when you look at Section 28 and even Section 29 of the new Act, it means that you have to count 360 days, and then Section 29, you have to count 180 days for parties to submit a list of candidates. So it would seem to me really important that part of what INEC needs to decide in their meeting is to announce the new date as supported by the Electoral Act for elections to hold next year in 2023.
Yeah, finally, Mr. Wankwo, it's not over yet, as the President did mention Section 84, subsection 12, running contrary to the Constitution. What should that amendment process entail? Quickly.
No, I don't agree with the President about Section 84 running contrary to the Constitution. I think it's quite clear. What the National Assembly did in that section is to actually prohibit persons who are appointed into positions, ministers, commissioners, director generals, and other MDA officials, from sitting in office, using the privileges of public office to run elections. This doesn't affect elected officials, whether governors or legislators. It affects those who are appointed to positions. And I think in the public good, if a minister wants to run for elections, if a commissioner in a state wants to run for election, if a DG in a government agency wants to run for election, they need to leave that office. It's not new. President Olusegun Obasanjo practiced this repeatedly. Even President Jonathan ensured that their appointed officials leave office in order to make sure that the business of government runs. They leave office, go and contest for elections. If it's a minister, he leaves office, and if the president is going to reappoint him, he goes back to the National Assembly to get approval to reappoint him, assuming he doesn't win the party nomination. But I totally disagree that Section 84, subsection 10, that the president refers to is unconstitutional. It certainly is not so. And my sense is that if any particular public appointee feels that it's unconstitutional, then they individually should go to court and challenge that and let the courts make a decision. But I do not accept or believe that National Assembly should revisit Section 84. It is not unconstitutional. It's in the public interest and in the very good, it's very good for this country's electoral process.
All right, although he mentioned subsection 12, Executive Director, Policy Advocacy Center, Mr. Clement Wankwo, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you.
Still ahead on the news at 10, leading indigenous energy company Seplat Energy to acquire the entire share capital of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited in a $1.2 billion deal. And that will be on business. Join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. The Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja has convicted kidnap kingpin Chukwudumeme Onwamadike, popularly known as Evans, on 2 counts of conspiracy and kidnapping of the managing director of Maidon Pharmaceuticals Limited, Donatus Dunu. Justice Hakeem Oshodi convicted Evans alongside 2 of his co-defendants, Uchenna Amadi and Okechukwu Nwachukwu. The judge held that the prosecution had successfully proved the charge against the 3 convicts beyond reasonable doubt. Let's cross over to Abuja. Here's Makwe Ogun Yusuf. Makwe?
Hello, Ijeoma. An SOS from Nigerian students trapped in troubled Ukraine leads our stories tonight. Ukraine is a popular destination for Nigerian students, especially for those in medicine-related fields. According to data from the Ukrainian government, an estimated 4,000 Nigerians were studying in tertiary institutions across the country in 2020. Amid a Russian invasion of the country, many of these Nigerian students are now left stranded with no concrete plans for evacuation.
Cities under siege across Ukraine are home to thousands of Nigerian students studying at universities across the country. But what was meant to be an alternative to studying compared to Western Europe or the United States has turned into a war zone overnight.
Where I am right now, there is no way I can order a taxi, and there is no bus. There's no movement at all. So I and my friends have been trying to see to make way, but it's impossible. We've not been able to leave where we are right now. So we've been here since yesterday. But I was asked by the house manager to switch off the lights because we are hearing that the Russian troops are already here. So we don't want to draw any attention right now.
With flights grounded and no evacuation plan in place, many students make their way to the Polish border, but some say they've been unable to cross over.
I was at the Ravarushka border today, and when we got there, we were told we needed a bus to enter. On arrival of a bus, when it was time to board, the males were not allowed. So it was just the females, and we didn't know why, and they didn't give us an explanation. It was only the females. When we got to the second checkpoint, they told us we couldn't enter because we don't have an EU visa.
On Thursday, the Nigerian embassy in Ukraine called for calm and vigilance, urging Nigerian citizens to be proactive with their personal safety. With families and loved ones thousands of miles away, These Nigerian students are calling on the Nigerian government for help.
We try to call our embassy over and over again. Nobody's speaking. They're not responding to our emails, to our text messages. They are not responding at all.
Left stranded.
The
message we got will be like, just be calm, just be calm. And then people who have like moved to Poland, they are not allowing them to move in.
Exactly.
They're sending them back at the border.
So we would like the Nigerian embassy to please give us the right information and give us the right steps, because it's unfair to just walk 13 kilometers for nothing. We really walked today and it was very tiring. We would like them to also make contact with the guards at the border to tell them to let us in.
As they wait for help, Russian forces advance into Ukraine.
Well, we do hope that the students there get some help ASAP. Back here in Nigeria, a total of 965 students have been conferred with first degrees, postgraduate degrees and diplomas at the 11th convocation ceremony of Caleb University in Lagos State. The management of the institution challenged the students to be game changers and those with entrepreneurial skills to position themselves as employers of labor.
It's the 11th convocation ceremony of Caleb University in Mota, Lagos State. 965 graduates of 2020-2021 are being conferred with first degrees, postgraduate degrees and diplomas.
The reality we are seeing in Caleb University, something you cannot really fully understand. We are having a total of 965 graduates. You have 823 undergraduates, out of which 49 are first class.
The convocation lecture is delivered by Dr. Akintoye Akindele, who challenges the graduates to innovate and carve out their own paths.
As you are graduating, do not be fixated on getting a job. You can also create a job. Do not be fixated that you have learned everything to get a job. Have a life of learning. You've been born at a time where Africa is rising back again. Africa is the future. You are the future.
Miss Iradia Ejeyi from the Department of Computer Science is the best graduating student with a CGPA of 4.92.
Fellow graduates, in the same way we have supported each other and helped each other succeed during these years at Caleb University, I hope we'll continue to provide support and encouragement for each other in future endeavors. The time has come for us to throw up our hearts, say farewell to Caleb University, and hello to the future.
Prizes are awarded to outstanding students who have attained academic distinctions in the academic year.
We know they will succeed, so they should just go ahead and do all they need to do, applying everything we've taught them towards success. Yes, the world out there, they might say there are no jobs. Where they meet no jobs, they can always create one. After all, someone would have hired them, so they could flip the coin.
This is the first physical convocation ceremony held by the university since the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted educational activities in 2020.
Into some company news, Kimberly-Clark Nigeria, makers of trusted diaper, Huggies and female sanitary products Kotex, has inaugurated a new factory in Ikorodu, Lagos State. At the event, the management of the company says the new factory is in fulfillment of its long-term objective to strengthen its investment and presence in Nigeria.
It's about the hygiene and safety of people and their families for Kimberly-Clark, makers of diaper, Huggies and female sanitary products Kotex. The company is putting their money where their mouth is, with the inauguration of this new facility to deliver high-quality essential hygiene and personal care products. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, is present, so also is the Lagos State Governor, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and other dignitaries. With over $100 million in foreign direct investment and more than 200 employees, the company management projects that the new facility will serve as an export hub for Africa in the near future.
Our new state-of-the-art mill is a symbol of our commitment to this country and of the opportunity for growth that we believe it exists. Our new facility also embodies Kimberly-Clark's highest commitment to the quality and safety of our products, including across our operations here in Nigeria.
For Professor Shibajo, the multi-million-dollar investment is in sync with Nigeria's economic diversification and industrialization agenda.
In just about a decade since you opened your doors in Nigeria, and with over $100 million invested, Kimberly-Clark West Africa has grown from just being an investor in Nigeria to a formidable partner in the actualization of Nigeria's economic objectives by adding value through diversification from our non-oil sector.
Governor Sanwo-Olu is making commitments of collaboration with industrialization efforts here.
We take up the challenge. We will fix this road. We will ensure that before the end of this year, we'll bring succor. We'll bring a lot, of belief.
Our new facility, it employs over 200 people, and it will not only help us serve Nigeria better, but in fact, it will make us a powerhouse in Africa. We really support the government's agenda to make Nigeria an export hub and continue towards delivering further economic value through the development of supply chain structures within our gambit and with the support of the government.
With a wide range of top-quality essential hygiene and personal care products, Kimberly-Clark promises to continue to employ innovation in the interest of its consumers in Nigeria and around the world.
Our governor,
Well, it's the end of the business week, and Teniola Shobowale has more company news and news on how the markets fared this week. Please stay with us.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
That's right, Markware. Welcome to Business News. Leading indigenous energy company Seplat Energy PLC is set to acquire the entire share capital of Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited from its Texas-based parent company ExxonMobil. In a statement released today, the energy company, which is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange, explains that it has entered into a sale and purchase agreement to acquire the entire share capital of Mobil Nigeria for a purchase price of $1.28 billion and about $300 million contingent consideration with effect from January the 1st, 2021. The company states that the deal, which is the first major transaction to be announced since the federal government ratified the Petroleum Industry Act on August the 16th, 2021, would support Nigeria's energy transition and the objectives of the PIA. According to Seplat's Chief Executive Officer, Roger Brown, the deal is in line with the company's drive to be Nigeria's leading indigenous independent energy firm, while the chairman of Seplat Energy describes the deal as transformational for the company as it strengthens the partnership with the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation and consummates the spirit of the newly enacted Petroleum Industry Act. Meanwhile, the board expects the sale to close in the second half of this year and will be classified as a reverse takeover. However, the transaction is subject to approval from the Petroleum Minister, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. Let's check in on the global oil market now. The prices have retreated from the sharp rises in the earlier session amid concerns over potential global supply disruptions from sanctions on major crude exporter Russia. International oil price benchmark Brent crude futures dropped by 0.81% to $98.28 per barrel as at 9:15 p.m. local time, while US WTI crude futures declined by 1.60% to $91.81 per barrel. Russia's invasion of Ukraine on Thursday caused prices to surge above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2014, with Brent touching $105 before paring gains by the close of trade. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden says the United States is working with other countries on a combined release of additional oil from their strategic crude reserves. Well, Russia has banned British Airlines from landing at its airports and crossing its airspace. The Russian civil aviation regulator says the move was in response to the unfriendly decisions by the UK aviation authorities. This comes after the UK banned Russia's national airline Aeroflot from landing in Britain on Thursday as part of sanctions on the country's banks following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. And over to the domestic stock market, the benchmark index ends Friday's trading session in the green with another moderate increase to the previous gains. Layo Adigoke tells us more.
Thank you for joining us for the stock market report. Deepening the gains from the previous session, the NGX added 30 billion naira today, with the all-share index up by 0.12%. Well, that's the bull there. The activity chart is, however, still in the red, with deals, volume and value shedding more than 20% each. Let's take a look at the sectors. The consumer goods was active and was up 0.15%. Guinness shared 2.05 naira, while Flour Mill on the flip side gained 20 kobo. Also in the positive at the close of trade was banking, which gained 0.25%. We have Access Bank to thank for this. The share price added 15 kobo. Industrial counter was on the flip side, down by 0.02%. Top trades by volume had FCMB, Transcorp and UBA. The trio traded about 100 million in volume in today's trade, leaving investors positive sentiments to close the week. And that's it on the stock market report. I'm Layo Adigoke.
Thanks, Teniola. New explosions have been heard in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, as Russian forces capture an airbase nearby. The government has called on citizens to make petrol bombs and defend their city. It also says 18,000 guns have been given to volunteers as Russian troops approach. For more on day 2 of the Russian invasion on Ukraine, here's Simon Pusey in our London studio.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukrainian civilians are now bearing arms as Russian troops continue to sweep through the country. Here, the military are handing out guns to anyone who wants to join the fight. According to the Ministry of Defense, 18,000 machine guns have been handed out to Kiev volunteers. Molotov cocktails have been prepared, ready for the approaching army. Videos on social media showing other atrocities. In Obolon, a tank smashing into a civilian car. Remarkably, the elderly driver survived and was pulled free. Ukrainians are now living in a land where at any moment missiles can just fall out of the sky. Here, a downed Russian aircraft which crashed into a residential building. Air raid sirens are commonplace now in the capital. Authorities are calling for anyone of any age to sign up and fight if they can. Metro stations across the capital have been turned into makeshift bomb shelters, crammed full with young and old. But many are leaving, thousands fleeing the fighting and the advance of Russian forces. Poland, Slovakia and here in Romania, refugees are being welcomed by locals.
I have a lot of my relatives in Kiev who are sitting in the bomb shelters right now because there is a bombing everywhere and people are afraid and scared. So we want to leave Ukraine right now, but I think that there is no possibility for men to leave.
The leaders, though, have no intention of turning their backs. Former heavyweight boxing champion Vitaly Klitschko, now mayor of Kiev, says he and his brother will fight. Volodymyr Zelensky also leading from the front. The Ukrainian president once again addressed the nation, praising the bravery of troops and again appealing to Vladimir Putin to enter negotiations with his government. But those calls have so far fallen on deaf ears. Sergei Lavrov here saying Russia will ensure the demilitarization of Ukraine and that he sees no possibility of recognizing the current Ukrainian government as democratic. It's ordinary people who are picking up the pieces. This Kiev resident singing her country's national anthem, remarkable resilience in the face of terror. The international community is reacting to the first major ground war in Europe in decades.
We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen.
The Biden administration has placed sanctions on 4 major Russian banks, which will have their assets frozen and be cut off from the US dollar transactions.
It will have maximum impact on the Russian economy and the political elite.
Meanwhile, the EU has targeted 70% of the Russian banking market and key state-owned firms.
We're taking new powers to target Russian finance, in addition to the banks we've already sanctioned.
The UK has announced all major Russian banks to have their assets frozen and be excluded from the UK financial system. This is a crisis affecting the sports world too. UEFA has moved May's Champions League final from St. Petersburg to Paris. Formula One has also cancelled its race in Sochi in September, while Manchester United have withdrawn Airflot's sponsorship rights. Meanwhile, protests against the Russian invasion have continued around the world. Hundreds gathered outside San Francisco's City Hall. Hundreds also here in Toronto chanting slogans and waving Ukrainian flags. People came out in Taiwan too. In Turkey, people asked the West to do more to support Ukraine.
Wake up! Russia, wake up!
And crowds gathered in Sydney's streets calling for an end to the bloodshed.
I think that the importance of Ukraine winning against Russia in this war is very important for world democracy and for global peace, actually. The West supporting Ukraine and giving it all it can, not just empty promises and concern, endless concern. It needs to act and help Ukraine win against Russia.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The 2022 Champions League final will be played in Paris after Russia was stripped of the match following their invasion of Ukraine. The final of Europe's most prestigious club competition was due to be played in St. Petersburg on May the 28th. And Manchester United have withdrawn Russian airline Aeroflot's sponsorship rights after Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia's Aeroflot was banned from flying to the United Kingdom on Thursday after President Vladimir Putin ordered an invasion of Ukraine. UK Civil Aviation Authority said it had suspended Aeroflot's foreign carrier permit. And Formula One driver Valtteri Bottas believes all drivers support the decision to cancel the 2022 Russian Grand Prix. Formula One said it will not race in Russia this season, saying it was impossible to do so after the country launched an invasion on neighboring Ukraine. And players from Ukraine's national basketball squad are concerned about family and friends at home as Russian troops advanced into Ukraine. The Russian invasion caught the team by surprise as they traveled to Spain, where they played against the national team in Cordoba on Thursday. And that's a wrap on Sports News. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Have a splendid weekend. It's back to Ijoma with the wrap.
Thanks a lot, Victor. And the main news again. It was a promise fulfilled as President Muhammadu Buhari today finally signed the electoral bill into law 25 days after the document was transmitted to him by the National Assembly. Reactions trailed the president's assent to the electoral bill as political players and analysts said key provisions of the new law will help curb electoral fraud. That's it on the news at 10. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Have a great weekend. Good night.